Well, I've got to say, if Trump's vitriol goes viral, your optimism is really infectious. And I think I speak not just for our organization, but people who follow you online. You have very infectious optimism. And if we're going to bounce back from this really polarizing Trump era, that's what's going to help us do it. And I'm also getting a message here that there's someone maybe trying to crash our party on this live stream. Not sure who that is, not sure what's going to happen here. Oh my God!
Hey,
Ben Stiller?
it's Ben Stiller.
It's Ben Stiller. What?
Oh my
Crashing.
gosh.
I thought I was invited.
Oh,
Invited.
the
You were a
special guest
surprise
is
guest.
Donald Trump. He's coming on in a little bit. You're taking his
No.
spot.
No, that's not true. God, no. No, first of all, I've been enjoying this as an audience. I don't want to mess up the rhythm because this has been amazing just listening to Mark talk about everything. So Mark, I'm a fan, as I don't think we've ever really talked to each other, but
No.
I'm a big fan. And the way that you're articulating where we're at right now in this moment, and also just what you're talking about in terms of the Star Wars movies and the messages behind it, and just what it is right now to be a person in this country, all of it, is for me, it's really great to hear. And what we're talking about tonight, what you guys are talking about tonight, I'm happy to be a fly on the wall.
It's so great to have you. I mean, when they told me who the special guest was, I said, "Are you kidding me? If we were in a movie together, he'd easily get top billing."
I was like,
we
you
are
must have
so
gone through a
honored
lot
to
of
have you.
other asks to get to a special guest.
Well, listen, the closest that we came to being friends is the fact that we follow each other on Twitter. And that's another amazing thing. The way people get in contact with you. I'm always amazed. Like, oh my God, this guy's like a professor at Harvard. Why would he follow a moron like me? I mean, one thing I'm aware of is on Twitter is that I do have a lot of young people follow me. So I don't drop F-bombs, and I try and do things with humor. I mean, as angry as I can get, I think you keep people's minds open more if you do it with humor rather than Ron Perlman is fierce on Twitter. Oh my gosh. He just rips with, he really articulates in a way that would not fit me. So, and I'm kind of square anyway. I tell my kids, you can get that point across without including the F word.
Well, I mean, I think also, Mark, you're very generous with your pop culture iconicness. That you're what you're saying. This sort of democratic way that people can, a fan can reach out and have direct contact with you.
Yeah.
And as these movies that you've made and it means so much to so many people, and to be able to have that interaction. There's a lot of people who aren't that accessible.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, that is the positive nature of what Twitter can be. I think there's a lot of negative about it and the vitriol that comes out, but there's also so much frustration too. And it's a natural, I mean, this is like, these are human beings who are expressing themselves, and this social media it's an expression of us as people. We take it where we take it. So, I think it's really important that there is a positive aspect to it. I wish I could be funnier on Twitter. I really admire the people who are really funny on Twitter, who just, are like, because a lot of the time I will tweet something because I'm trying to express myself, but I have this, I'll like go, does that sound too serious? Is that funny enough? People are going, maybe I should be funny, but I don't know how to be funny, but I really want to say this. And, or I'm really angry, or,
yeah.
President did something that drove me crazy, and but like, should I just be another voice? It's just like, what am I going to add to it? And so there's I think there's a way to be very constructive on it, that you are, for sure. And both, like, and as I said, like, just connecting with your fans in that way means so much to so many people. And when I saw your Twitter feeds, like, this guy's like really opening himself up to the people who I think that means so much to them.
Well, and it
means a lot to me. It means a lot to me to be able to connect with you on Twitter, Mark.
It's interesting that you note that, Ben, because really, and not to make this an advertisement for Twitter, although they should pay all of us after this, but that actually brought this group together, because Sarah and I have noticed how impactful you have both been on that platform. And people complain about Twitter being a place where folks throw digital bombs. It's actually been a place for some very positive dialogues to happen. And you all have both been very influential on that platform and others, really getting people to be more civically aware. You've used the extraordinary microphones that you've built through your careers to get people to pay attention to these issues and to do it in a way that's respectful and constructive instead of divisive and hateful. And both of you were very willing to engage with us when we reached out on that platform and said, would you, help further advance these efforts? So we couldn't be more grateful for your engagement on that front. And I actually wanted to ask both of you, a lot of people say Washington, D.C. is what's broken. I tend to think that really what's broken is us. Washington, the founders created the system that really mirrors what's happening across the country. How do we bury the hatchet after this election, regardless of how it turns out? How do you both think that we end up burying the hatchet and get a more constructive public dialogue?
That's not a hard question at all. It's super easy. Just like a light question that you guys can handle. No big deal.
I mean, I think you're making. I don't know. I think you're right that there is so much. It's so hot right now. There's so much frustration and anger, and the fact that that people can't connect with each other because of their political views differing is something that's, I guess that's always been an issue for people, but it's never been at this level. And I don't think it ever stopped people from really connecting in the way that it has at this point. And I think it's social media. I honestly do think that because it allows people to it gives a voice to the voiceless, people who can have their message amplified when the president retweets a conspiracy theory, whatever, it's just, it just amplifies everything. So what's the answer? I think it's what Mark is saying. It's, it's about empathy, and it's about positivity, and like you said, Mark, that George Lucas was, you said maybe it's a little corny or something when you're making the Star Wars movies, but look at how much that message resonates with people. And I think it's getting beyond the cynicism right now.
Yeah, I think people are longing to be united again, because this is unprecedented. We've never seen a president like this. I mean, you could have been opposed to George W. Bush or Jimmy Carter or you name it, but he was the president, and they were never as divisive as what we have now. But I think the nation's ailing right now. I mean, not only because of the coronavirus, but in their hearts. And I think there's a real desire to find a way to come together again. And we have a wonderful opportunity in someone like Joe Biden, who is, exhibits all the qualities that you would consider admirable in a leader. I mean, because you see, I was watching Barack Obama today speak, and he was talking about how the behavior we see now from the president. He said, you wouldn't tolerate this from a school teacher or from anyone, really. I mean, just the fact that you can't believe a word he says. It's one thing they say, well, all politicians lie, but not like this. I mean, the Washington Post put out a book when he was only at 20,000 lies. Now he's at 22,000 lies. And when you lose that kind of credibility, you never get it back. And I'm just astonished that he plays only to his base, the 39, 40, 41, whatever it is, the high that he's never been over 50%. So you have that cult who believes anything he says, and that's going to be dangerous should we prevail, because we don't want to see, either way it goes, even if he gets reelected, I don't want to see people out in the streets with torches and fighting. That's not what we want. But I do think that we're going to be surprised at how anxious people are to begin the healing process. At least, I hope.
Yeah.
On that point, one of the things that we try to do with this project, it's about getting people to stand up, right? It's about Republicans who, you know, it's hard to stand up against your own tribe and speak out, which is really what Miles did and what Miles exemplified, that bravery. What would you guys say? You know, because, hey, guys, we're still taking videos. We'll still take testimonials from Republicans who aren't going to support Trump in 2020. What would you guys say to a voter right now when they're thinking about how to evaluate this election and what's at stake? What would you guys say to an undecided voter right now to help push them over the edge?
For me, it's just about decency and the truth, and being able to trust the people who are leading us. And that to me is the most disturbing thing that's happened. There's no sense of the truth mattering anymore. And you know, what I've realized is from this administration is that the president is a figurehead, and an important figurehead. Even, you know, no matter what control he has over legislation or not, it's how he is, what he says, and the message he puts out to the country. And that's, to me, you know, as a father with kids, I'm just tired of having to tell my kids over and over again, this isn't the way it's supposed to be.
Yes.
You know, and that to me is what it comes down to. And of course, the economy is important for people who are trying to put food in their mouths. But that's, you know, if you can't get through to what the truth is of what's really going on in this country, and our leader isn't telling us the truth, that's just not, you know, that's not acceptable. And that's where our democracy is in trouble. And, you know, and by the way, you know, I'm here with you, you know, Republican voters. I've been a lifelong Democrat, and, you know, and for me, I've always found it's important to be able to talk to people who have a different point of view. And when somebody who is, you know, across the aisle and cannot be connected with in any way, you know, I work with refugees, UN Refugee Agency, and I talk to Republicans when I'll go to Washington. You know, Republican senators, you know, people like Lindsey Graham, and you know, who you know, are human beings, but it's really distressing to see, because I'll talk to them as a person, and they'll say, yeah, they want to do stuff for refugees. And I think a lot of people want to do good work, but you know, the reality is when there's a president who comes in and the entire party is just basically enabling someone who is not telling the truth, who's breaking the norms, you know, at that point, I'm like, you have to do something. I would ask voters to look at that and look at the decency and the truth.
Well, you know, all my kids are grown now, but we've never had a president who's done so many things that you would punish your child for. The bullying, the name calling, the language. I mean, even when he should be exulting in an accomplishment like having Israel and Sudan normalize relations, he has to ruin it by saying, hey, Bibi, you don't think Sleepy Joe could have accomplished that, right? How about that Sleepy Joe? I mean, the mean girl nicknames, what's up with that? It's really disheartening to see that he appeals to the most base instincts that people have. So he emboldens cruelty. He emboldens the racism, and you know, it's kind of shocking because I thought, well, his approval rating will steadily go down to where he's in the low 30s and maybe even the high 20s, because there's always going to be that element in our society that loves that sort of behavior. But boy, it's been so constant at between 39 and 42%. That's why I hope, you know, that our turnout is improved. I think 136 million voted in 2016. If we could get that up 2, 3, 4, 5%, it would make all the difference in the world, because his was a razor slim victory over Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Of only, you know, in each state he got less than 1% to beat Hillary Clinton. So I don't think he's going to be able to pull that off again. I'm afraid he's not able to do that.
Well, there's someone that I've got to give a big hat tip to in this conversation, and it's Sarah. Helped start this organization that we engage in some way, shape, or form. And there was a poll that came out this past week that we were talking about earlier offline that showed that roughly 4% of Republicans are defecting towards Joe Biden. That 4%, if they weren't defecting towards Biden, this race would be a dead heat right now. It would be a dead heat. So these Republicans that Sarah and this operation are turning out to vote for Joe Biden, or at least not vote for Donald Trump, could make or break this election and really make or break the country over the next 4 years. So those folks that are deciding to put country over party are critical. And I think hearing from both of you is important to help make sure that we have that bulwark against a second Donald Trump term. But Ben, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned earlier, and I don't want to put you on the spot on refugees, but you've done so much good stuff in your career to help support refugees. And when I was in the administration, we faced pressure every single year from the president to take the number of refugees we admitted into this country from a rough historical average of maybe 40 or 50,000, sometimes more, down to zero. The president told me personally he wanted the number to be zero. He wanted no refugees to come into America anymore. Now, when we kicked off this live stream, there's a great quote from Ronald Reagan, the same man who portrayed the United States as a shining city on a hill, a nation of immigrants that welcomed refugees. What has that done to our image in the world? And how do we rehabilitate that image? Whether we have 4 more months of Donald Trump or 4 years and 4 months, how do we get back to being seen as that welcoming, open arm country?
Yeah, I mean, it's very distressing to hear you say that, Miles. Honestly, as someone in the room there, hearing that directly, just knowing how much work so many people around the world are doing to try to help this incredible crisis of over 70 million displaced people in the world. But first of all, the reality is the United States, even when it's taking a lot of refugees, it's literally less than 2% of refugees that get around the world get resettled anywhere, 2%. So it's such a small number. And the ones who are resettled are, have gone through, of course, extreme vetting and have only been a positive addition to the places that they've come to. And that's what the numbers say, and have added billions of dollars of revenue to this country, and have just created a positive social change and are part of the fabric of what America is. We're a country of refugees and immigrants. I mean, we all are, except for the Native Americans here who we, came and did what we did. So it's very distressing to hear that. I think first of all, change that. I think the first thing is like get us back to what we have been, which is a leader in offering asylum to people who are fleeing persecution and war, and the most vulnerable people in the world. And we have always been the country that has led on that, except when there are incidents in our history during World War II when we didn't do that. And that's changed over the last 70 years. And I think it's incredibly important that, that we stand for what we've always stood for in America, which is, offering a place for people to come to who are seeking a chance to have a good life. And so, again, I'm sort of still just, I know that's been the policy of the United States under this administration. And it's unconscionable to me, but to hear that directly is really, it's tough to hear.
I'd just like to take the moment to thank Sarah and people like her, because I think it's the only way that you're going to save the Republican Party. You're looking to the future. He's not going to be president forever. And when I saw Michael Steele, who was once the head of the RNC, come out with his video, I mean, I am so grateful. I mean, I'd like to think that if the positions were reversed, I would be able to put country over party. I know I would. But if you have any, I think what'll happen, I hope what'll happen is at some point, it's like when Goldwater went to Nixon and said, hey, you don't have the votes. You will be impeached. You will be convicted. It's time to go. That's when we had reasonable Republicans. There's got to be some point, because they say, well, off the record, X, Y, and Z in the Senate, can't stand the guy, or they really disagree with this or that. The same in the House, but they're all in lockstep because they're terrified for their careers. Uh-oh. Yeah, so what I was saying is thank you to Sarah. Thank you to all the Republicans that have the foresight to see that that if they want to, because you don't want to go the way of the Whigs. I mean, if I saw the scary story where they said that Don Jr. wanted to run in 2024, and I nearly passed out because I thought, oh my God, or Jared saying that Ivanka will be the first female president. Oh my gosh. I don't see that happening, but if it weren't for, like you say, the 4%, we'd be in real trouble. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for saying that. And just to pick up on that, look, I think it's really important that we have a viable center-right party in this country. But what I signed up for and it's funny just listening to Ben talk, the Republican Party that I know is the kind of party that thought about America, that America was so great and so awesome. Like, we wanted people to come here. We wanted to say, yes, we will take your refugees. It's written on the Statue of Liberty. I mean, we wanted people to come here, and it was baked into who we were. That's what made us the greatest country on earth. And it's been a little while now since I've heard Republicans talk like that, and it's incredibly disheartening. And it really is. Look, the only way that we will ever get back to a place where there's a responsible center-right party in this country is not only if Donald Trump is defeated. It's not just about beating Donald Trump. This has to be a thorough repudiation of Trump and Trumpism. And that is going to take Democrats turning out. It's going to take independents turning out. It's going to take Republicans putting country over party. And that is the way that we're going to take this country back from this moment that is very dark, very scary. And so, look, thanks to both of you. But I want to take it back to Mark, something you said earlier. You talked about the happy endings. And I just want to know, do you think we're going to get a happy ending here? Where do you think we're going?
I'm eternally optimistic. I love this country. I believe in this country, and I believe in the basic decency of the American public. So, he's a cult leader, and we're much larger than his cult. And so, yes, I think we will have one. Now, I remember learning when I was in Australia, mandatory voting. If you don't vote, you get the equivalent of like a parking ticket in the mail. I don't know what it is, $15, $20, whatever it is. The upshot is they're in the 98th percentile. It's like only 2% of Australia doesn't vote. And I thought, oh, if we could have something like that in America, and of course, money is a great motivator. It's always shocking to me how many people don't vote. Even when I was the first election, when they lowered the age to 18, and a lot of my classmates, I was in, I think, my first year of college. What do you mean you didn't vote? Oh, I went out last night. Well, my vote doesn't matter. It's just one vote. I just don't understand that thinking, and that's why I'm so appreciative of these phone banks and the get out the vote efforts on your part. I mean, because I couldn't wait to vote. I mean, if you don't vote, you lose the privilege of bitching and moaning. You can't complain because you didn't get in there and make your opinion known. I mean, I looked at voting as such a privilege and a great power. Why would you not want to exercise that power?
Well, it's a good question, because what I wanted to ask Ben is about some of the disinformation that we've seen out there. And a lot of it's, my worry when I was Trump's chief of staff at DHS was that in this election, the worst disinformation was going to come from the Russians and the Chinese and foreign adversaries interfering. Now we're seeing a lot of it come out of the White House itself. The president's trying to scare people that their ballots won't get counted, they won't get counted correctly, the election's rigged. Ben, you just did an important civic act today. Would you tell people that, there it is, would you tell people that it's okay? Is the system working? I mean, can you report that democracy is functioning? And what did you experience at the polls? Because people are actually worried about going to vote in the time of COVID.
Yeah. I mean, I experienced 4 hours of it waiting on.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, you were just in the voting booth and you just couldn't figure out what boxes to check. That's right.
Well, are you in California or New York?
No, I'm in New York. I'm in Westchester, New York right now.
All right.
And
it was 4 hours to vote?
It was 4 hours today. First, early voting day, first early voting day. I mean, I was both, I was happy that everybody was there. And I think everybody who was there was very, very motivated to, to place their vote. And I think what I thought about is, well, this is a place where it's probably pretty easy to vote. And I thought about the places in our country where it's not as easy to vote, and where there's, there's sort of like an active, effort to make it harder for people to vote. And, but the people who were there were very calm. I think we all knew we were going to be there for a little while. And there was a feeling like we're doing something that's important. And, like I don't brag a lot about a lot of stuff, but like I'll brag like, hey, and
I got a sticker.
But yeah, and it felt good to vote. And you're right. It's a privilege. And I think look, I haven't voted in every election. I'll be honest, over the years. And these last maybe it's just also like where I'm at in my life, but these last elections, I realized, oh my God, this is like, I have to do this. This is an obligation and it's important. And, I have an 18-year-old daughter. This is her first election that she's voting in. And she couldn't have been, she stood online and could not have been more motivated to have her voice heard and, and stand up for the things that she feels are important to her as a young woman. So, it's working. Do it, go there, just plan, bring a candy bar or something. There was a woman that there was pizza at the polls. There was a woman who was offering pizza to everybody, and I made some new friends, and we did it.
So you folks, the voters out there who haven't voted yet, of course, get ready, send in your ballots. But as Ben just told you, you might even get a free sticker. You might get free pizza. Right. And if you vote the right way, you might get a new president, which could be a really cool thing. In fact, I constantly tell people the top reason I think Donald Trump is not a Republican and he's not a limited government conservative is his presidency is so bloated and so big that it invades our heads every single day. I mean, it's such a huge government that it's inside of all of our lives. So, if we vote the right way this time around, you might get your life back and not have to worry about politics every single day.
We have our mail-in ballots that we're going to fill out this weekend, but we're so paranoid. We are not going to put them in the mail. We're going to drive them. If you go to iwillvote.com, it's a great website. iwillvote.com is like the one-stop website to answer all your questions. So we know where our polling places are. It's here in Malibu. It's up the road at the library. So we're going to do that. But again, I mean, who would have thought that they'd start removing mail sorting machines and putting up fake drop boxes? It's a nightmare. But Louis DeJoy has no experience in that. It seems to me every chance he got, he appointed a fox to watch after the hen house. An oil lobbyist becomes the head of the EPA. It's just a nightmare that's got to end.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I was just going to say about the institutions. That this has exposed our institutions and the reality that the institutions in this country are only as good as the people who are running them, right? I'm curious, just for you, Miles, how you got that job, and then what just a little bit of what that experience was being right there with it.
Yeah, and as I answer this, I think, Sarah, we might be able to take some questions from the chats too, although I don't know how we get to them, but you might know.
I got a lot of questions, people blowing up my phone. I will tell you, unfortunately, there's a fair number of people who want to see Blue Steel from Ben Stiller and Yoda quotes from Mark. So I don't know how, we just prepare yourselves. There's a lot of questions like that, but go ahead, Miles. Answer that.
But I really think
our political views. They don't want to hear our
They just want to see how ridiculously good looking you are. It's a good question, Ben. A lot of us went in to that administration not knowing Donald Trump, you know, I mean, we all as a public, I think, were very clear-eyed about who he was. This was not a paragon of virtue walking into the White House by any means. But, you know, I went in with John Kelly, and he convinced me to join him over at DHS as his national security advisor, though I remember at the time being told, don't worry, you're not going to have to deal with Trump very much. And that was a total lie. And I ended up having to do that a good bit. But a lot of us went in, John Kelly, H.R. McMaster, Rex Tillerson, Jim Mattis. It would have been a great cabinet for any Republican. But they went in not because they thought these jobs were going to be a huge boon to their careers and reputations. I think folks sensed that they were going to take reputational hits by working for Trump, but really because there was a fear that a lot of the lackeys that were on the Trump campaign were ill-equipped to go run really important departments and agencies. And in our case, an agency that's responsible for protecting Americans against cyber attacks, terrorist attacks, man-made and natural disasters, interference from foreign governments. There was a worry that if you sent political operatives in to those positions, we would have had a much more dangerous administration. So, you know, I stepped into that job and then ultimately took over as the chief of staff at DHS because, well, I'm a product of the 9/11 generation. I wanted to prevent another 9/11. That's why I went in. But over time, it became very clear to us that in addition to protecting the country from foreign enemies, that we had a very serious concern within the legislative branch about a domestic actor, and that was the president himself. I mean, the more we got exposure to the president, the more we grew concerned that he was generally unstable and unfit for the job. I mean, really, you couldn't get him to focus day to day. You go into, I mean, there was a meeting that we had with him about child safety, about kids getting gunned down in classrooms. And in the other room outside the Oval Office were families who'd lost kids in Newton and in Parkland. And we wanted to prepare the president by saying, here are our recommendations to keep this from happening again. Our recommendations to protect America's classrooms. Trump was distracted. He didn't want to pay attention. And he changed the subject immediately. And do you know what he wanted to talk about? He wanted to talk about the border wall. And he started sketching for us on a piece of paper how he wanted to redesign the border wall. Keep in mind, we're 2 years in. The border wall had already been designed. He said, I want it to be a beautiful piece of artwork, okay? Go back and make it just the most beautiful. It'll be the biggest. It'll be the most beautiful piece of art. And I'm sitting here literally with the bios of dead children in my briefing book. And the president wants to talk about this beautiful artwork that we should build. That's the man who's in the Oval Office. You can't get him to focus on what matters. And he doesn't want to hear from people who tell him what he needs to hear. He only listens to those who tell him what he wants to hear. And so at the end of the day, the Oval Office has become an echo chamber in this administration. It's why I had to leave. But if he does get a second term, I'll be the first to say, we need good people to go into that administration. We need them to go throw themselves on that grenade because we can't have these MAGA hat-wearing frat boy child soldiers running around across the administration taking over. We really need accomplished professionals there.
Okay, guys, we're going to take some questions here before it goes too long because we're running up against time. So first of all, some quick shout outs. I want to reiterate iwillvote.com. I want to reiterate Pizza to the Polls, which is an excellent organization out there doing work. I also want to stress that vote early day was yesterday. Okay, so you can vote right now in a lot of places that have early voting. Check and see if you and your state can vote early and get out there and do it. It'll save everybody a lot of headaches on election night if people vote early. But then one other shout out to Joshua, who's a veteran against Trump, who named his kids Luke and Leia. So thanks, Joshua, for that. And then this is from Ken, and I'm sorry to do this to you, Ben, but what is Zoolander's political position?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him. I think he's probably against it.
I don't think he's ever registered to vote.
You think Zoolander's not
against politics?
Yeah, right.
That sounds about right. Mark, this is for you. Does Pence remind you of Emperor Palpatine?
Not particularly. Palpatine was far more interesting and compelling a character. And I'm still remarking, I'm just overwhelmed by Miles' impression of the president. I mean, he does him very, very well.
We were just told in the chat that you did a great Yoda I did a decent Trump, and they're waiting for Ben to do an impression of some kind. So no pressure there, but we'll let you just decide who you want to be.
Or just give us a
Get John Biner on an impression.
Or just a Zoolander expression that it slays me. The purse.
We got it. There's the blue seal.
All right.
I actually apologize that you had to do that on our live stream, but we appreciate it.
Got to give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want. Speaking of which, Mark, what's the most inspirational Star Wars quote you can think of that applies to our current situation? That's a hard question.
Yeah, that is. And it's the truth of the matter is, I don't really watch those movies. I did when they re-released them in the theaters. It was 20 years ago, and they said, "Oh, they're going to spruce them up with special effects." And I said to George's secretary, I said, "Great, send me a copy." And my kids were saying, "We're not going to go see them in the movies." I said, "You guys, you've seen them a million times. Why would you want to see them again?" They said, "But we never saw them in the theaters." So what the point I'm trying to make is, I meet these people who not only watch the movies, they play the video games, they read the novels and all the ancillary material that they put out. And I don't do that, nor have I seen them since 1997. So I'm just, it's terrible. My son Nathan said, "Dad, you shouldn't have taken the Star Wars quiz. You really embarrassed yourself." Because I flunked. Who can remember? They said, "What was Han Solo smuggling in the Millennium Falcon?" And it was a multiple choice, and I still got it wrong.
Yeah, but you know what? I think you got the best one. The do or do not. There is no try. That applies to voting right now. Everybody go do it. There's no try this time. There's no do-overs. Got to do it. Exactly. Miles, I got a question for you. Miles, are there any other Trump officials that you think are going to speak out before this election happens?
That's a really good question. We're trying very hard. We're really working on some people who are on the fence. Amidst COVID, we've been saying keep your mask on. This is the one circumstance where I really want people to take their masks off. And that is, there's a lot of officials, almost every household name you know of that served in the Trump administration behind the scenes as someone who will say, and I really mean this, they'll say, "I think the president's unfit for office." I've been very vocal against him. There have been others that I served with that feel even more strongly that the president's not qualified for his job. I hope we hear from them. I will say, Sarah, though, we had good news the other night. A group of us did a primetime special on CNN of all the dissidents who've spoken out against Trump, and it led off with a great quote from John Kelly, who said that Donald Trump is literally the most flawed human being he has ever met in his entire life. So I hope we'll hear from a few more folks along those lines.
Well, General Michael Hayden was a great one. Not only was, and this that former CIA and NSA director, he was so moving because he's had a stroke, but for him to come out like that, someone that important, was really meaningful to me. And I remember his final quote was, "Joe Biden is a good man, Donald Trump is not." And I thought that, to boil it down to that basic idea was amazing. Because like you say, there's all of these people that privately have these opinions, but it doesn't do any good unless they tell the people.
That's right. And we really appreciate it. General Hayden, if you're listening, thank you for your RVAT video. We appreciated that. If anybody else is a Republican out there who's ready to speak up against Trump, there's still time to make videos and help persuade people and help them join this tribe of Republicans who know that Donald Trump is the wrong choice in 2020. So I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I want to thank Ben Stiller. I want to thank Mark Hamill. It's amazing that you guys did this. I will tell you, I only got 2 questions. One was about what kind of wine I was drinking, which was a Pinot Noir. The other question was about the future of the Republican Party, which we will save for a totally different live stream. Miles Taylor, you're an American hero, my friend, and I'll let you take it home.
Well, hey, thanks, everyone. Really appreciate folks being on tonight. This was a great evening. Thank you for spending your Saturday with us. But again, I want to thank Mark and Ben again. They really, truly have been out there encouraging people to be civically active. And I actually hope that when this is all over, that bipartisanship we're seeing towards civic engagement will continue. I think that's what will get us through this. I think it's what will help us prepare the country. And you two have been soldiers in that fight, and we're grateful and eager to work with you to repair America when this is all over. So thank you again, everyone. Any final thoughts from Ben and Mark?
I just wanted to say, Miles, good luck on your new career on Saturday Night Live. When Alec Baldwin passes the baton.
Yeah.
I'm ready to do it.
No, thank you, Miles, for what you've been doing for the country. And Mark, thank you for an incredible career and being such a great guy. It's really great to connect with you.
Yeah,
And
likewise, Ben. And I have to again say, if it weren't for people like Miles, if it weren't for people like Sarah, we would be even more divided than we are. And I'm so grateful to your organization, to the Lincoln Project, to Michael Steele, to all the Republicans over the years. That, I mean, I just Googled to do my homework to get ready for this call. Republicans who have endorsed Joe Biden, and it was just thousands and thousands. And, Christy Todd Whitman, and Tom Ridge, and John Kasich, all these people. So we all have to put America first. There's no other choice. So thank you all for what you've done, and I want to wish Miles all the best as a Saturday Night Live cast member, as Ben suggested. You're a young man. You have a great career ahead of you.
I'll be one of those that gets fired real quickly. So, well, thank you guys. Mark, can you close us out with the parting we would normally get when you would leave, your fellow Jedi? How would you close us out?
Well, I would say, may the Force be with each and every one of you from here to eternity.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.